So the guys from Mythical Games are here. Their panel is entitled A People-First Approach to Web3. Katherine's going to introduce the Mythical Games team, including Daniel Frank, who was with us earlier, if you were there. So your chance to ask questions to Daniel Frank if you didn't get a chance earlier on. Over to you, Katherine. Fantastic. I'll get out of the way. Round of applause for the fellas, please.
Hey everyone, just as a quick background on who we are and what we do, Mythical Games is a venture-backed game technology company working at sort of the intersection of blockchain technology and games. A huge part of sort of our foundational core values is that we are people first. That means different things to different people, and we're going to kind of dive into that. But first, I would love to introduce everyone else on the panel. If you'd like to go ahead, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Dwyer, and I'm the head of recruiting for Mythical Games. I'm my third month with the company, and have a long background working in startups and technology. This is my first gaming technology startup, but yeah, so I'm a huge gamer, so I'm excited to take my passion and my work and merge them together. So yeah.
Hey everybody, Daniel Frank, SVP of Platform. With the wind chill factor, also 3 months, but it feels a lot longer, probably 6 months out of a year working in crypto. I've been in the space. I joined Dapper Labs in 2018, just the end of Crypto Kitties. Worked on the Flow blockchain, Dapper Wallet, NBA Top Shot, and then worked in different studios at EA, Xbox, and then a whole bunch of time at IBM. I love everything about crypto. I collect different NFT projects on different chains, really into the space. I love what I do, and I love the people I work with, and looking forward to this conversation today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate Taylor. I am creative director on Blanco's Block Party. I actually think I am the longest serving person at Mythical on this panel. And it's been an awesome experience, obviously working from a really small team, and then as we've expanded, and in a really exciting area as well. So if you don't know, Blanco's Block Party is a free-to-play game on PC, and it is about vinyl toys that come to life and collect vinyl toys. So check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. So I wanted to, like I was saying earlier, dive into a little bit about what people first actually means. So I would like to sort of ask you first, Mike, what does people first mean to you? And what are some examples you've seen of Web3 companies doing this well?
Well, it means people first.
Get out of here.
And which is super important, because without people, you can't create or do anything when it comes to building a company or building a video game or building anything in blockchain. So I think that from a recruiting perspective, I see people first, meaning that you have to be very empathetic and conscious. Put yourself in the shoes of people who are out there that might want to work here, or that you might want them to come work here. And so creating an experience that is delightful and transparent, and is more based on adding value outside of just offering a job, I think is really important. Just real quick, how many people here have been reached out to today from a recruiter? Okay, there's a couple right there. All right, Axel works here, so that's not good. We're gonna have to talk about that later. But I mean, we all get reached out to quite often by recruiters, and a lot of them don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about. They're not providing you with a good experience. They're not really adding any value outside of just asking you if you want this job that has a link that they've emailed to you or sent you through LinkedIn. So I think it's really important that you're adding value and transparency to the candidate experience. And so an example of a Web3 company that's doing a pretty good job of that right now is Polygon. They have a really robust talent community that they've created. Of course, they've created developer communities because that's what they do. But they also have like really in-depth FAQs on their website, so that if you're a candidate, you know what your interview process is going to be like. So I think there's a bunch of different things you can do that is empathetic to the candidate, providing a great experience, but also being involved in the community to kind of show your passion and interest in what people are doing that you're trying to recruit into the organization. So those are just some examples of that and how I see people first from a TA perspective.
That's awesome. If you could just share from your standpoint what that means to you, Daniel.
Oh.
Sorry.
I can take it a slightly different angle. I think when I think about great products, they come from great teams. Great teams come from great cultures, and great cultures are built on great values. So even though we're talking about people first, I've worked in different companies where there's been a people focus perspective from a user perspective. You'll hear about obsessed about the user, or even at EA where I worked before, it was player first. But here, people first, what I really love, it's around the team and the values that the team has. So I just want to emphasize, even though we're talking about people first, I love the fact that as an organization, we're focused on that. But then to answer your question, when I think about people first, I think about it from a product and experience perspective, and of course that translates easily into player first. Because the question was, where have you seen, Web3 companies? Like I mentioned in the intro, I worked at Dapper before Mythical, and there was a real tipping point when CryptoKitties came out. And if you ever used blockchain, 3 or 4 years ago, it was really super janky about going to Coinbase, opening a MetaMask. It was terrible. And what we focused on from a player first perspective rather, was to build really easy onboarding from the Dapper wallet, and we built a new wallet on the Ethereum when that was there, and allowed for fiat. Easy credit card payments. So when you have that people first or player first mentality, it shifts. You become very empathetic. You think about them first. So this one example. I can think of other things, but I think from an onboarding perspective, I think Dapper did a good job there, and now most companies think about the same types of things as well, including Mythical.
Just to follow on from what you were saying, I think it's really important to remember that ease of access, because it's a really intimidating space. So I think that should be at the forefront of people first within Web3, because we want more people to get involved in everything, and it's a cool foundation for Mythical Games as well. Obviously, from my point of view, working on Blanco's block party, and there's a few systems that I'm sure a lot of people have heard these terms, but play to earn. And that's a real opportunity for players to literally earn a living from playing games. And it needs to be a fun experience. Obviously, games are there to have fun, community, and everything like that. That needs to be right from a foundation point of view, but it's really just the potential for actually earning and true digital ownership as well is something that I keep on kind of circling back to, and kind of underpins a lot of what we approach with Blanco's block party, and yeah, trying to keep it accessible as well.
Yeah, that's great. And as I was talking about earlier, people first is a foundational core value for Mythical Games, but I wanted to sort of ask you how that sort of permeates externally into the work that you do on the day-to-day.
Oh, you want? Yeah, you go first. Day-to-day. I don't think there isn't a day or moment when you're not people first or player first. Like I already mentioned, onboarding is super important to get that right. I think that's pretty much the key focus on the day-to-day. Having said that, there's other elements around when it comes to, if this morning actually earlier today I was talking about marketplaces and providing more data. And so once you get onboarding right, another element is around providing data for people that are in a marketplace when they want to sell something, when they want to buy something. So that's different. Like when you go to Craigslist or eBay, you're sort of posting at something, but there's that kind of intelligence or information that you get in those environments. But I think the blockchain space is demanding that kind of thing. So it's a new kind of ask from a player perspective that we kind of haven't seen before. At least in the past, when I worked in e-commerce and different types of things, it wasn't always in the place, but it definitely is. Definitely is now.
Well, I'm in a place where I'm working in a company, and this is not only this company but other tech startups I've been at, where we're fighting for a very small pool of people. For instance, blockchain developers. There's about, I don't know, like 1,000 in the United States, and there are 300 million people here, and we have to find those folks, and we have to attract them and bring them into the organization. And to do that, and oh, by the way, there's a couple other people also looking for those blockchain engineers, and some of them are doing it well, and some of them aren't. But this has always been happening. Like I've been in this business for a long time, and like there was a time when UX designers, where everyone needed a UX and a UI designer, and there were not a lot of them around, and you had to do the same types of things. So, like I was saying earlier, I'm constantly looking through the lens of like, how are we adding value to the candidates that we're trying to recruit into the organization? And just actually to take a step back, like my team is a nice sized team. So my team is not overwhelmed, which does happen a lot in startups as well, where you have one recruiter working on just way too many requisitions, and they're overwhelmed as well, and that kind of spills out into what they're doing with the candidates and how they're interacting with them, how they're following up with them. So it's really important to get involved in communities and try to engage with people outside of just asking them if they want to work here. And then you have to provide an amazing experience that's cognizant that this is something that's awkward and uncomfortable for them at some times, and make sure that you're following up with them, because there's a kind of a bad rap out there when it comes to being interviewed and recruited. People don't follow up with you maybe sometimes, or provide you with any feedback. So it's kind of, there's a number of things that I'm always thinking about as far as the candidate is concerned, much in the same way that you would think of for a salesperson. And just because of Web3 specifically, it's very new, very nascent in its stage. And so there's not a lot of people that can do it. And so you have to really be providing that amazing experience and adding value. And so, we've done that from our blockchain space when we're recruiting. We have a recruiter who's supposed to be here, but he's studying right now for a test in the hotel, and but he can't be here. But I was going to highlight him because he actually is a blockchain recruiter. He gets out into Discord, he gets out into these places and builds relationships with people and gets them interested in us through his passion for what he does. And so I think that that's just a kind of an example of that and how we live that from a recruiting perspective.
I think that's so important as well, to go for the passion portion of it, because obviously it can be quite a loaded terms and everything like that, but going after the people that have that passion and everything like that is what I look for to inform kind of the wider creative team. So it's reassuring to hear that our recruiter will say things like that as well, so we're on the same page. So obviously with Blanco's Block Party, we've got quite a few features within our game that's leaning into Web3. So, and it really circles back to my original point about play to earn, and that underpinning a lot of kind of those features. And it's that opportunity for players to earn and to tick off challenges and to work through the party pass. And you don't have to do that. You can just play the game if you want to play the game and be quite passive. And obviously it has to remain fun. You can also go to the store and purchase items in the store, such as our Blanco drops and everything. But it's really important to make sure that there's an access point for players to earn NFTs. So we have our party pass system, we have our free track, and then we have our paid track as well. And then over the course of 8 weeks, you work your way through challenges, and that's how you earn NFTs. It's just really important, the fact that we're always going to have that within our game, and people engage with it. And it's not necessarily people from crypto, it's gamers. Gamers are doing it through normal game systems. And then there's also the opportunity within Blancos that you can add value, and that's really important as well. So obviously it's a normal system, you can level up your Blanco, and through that you can unlock accessory slots, but that also means that you're increasing the value of your Blanco potentially. And then with the addition of secondary marketplace, this Blanco has more personalization and things like that. So it's a way to add value. It's just really awesome, the fact that Web3 opens up those opportunities within a game system.
Can I add one more thing I forgot to mention? Oh, it's a big one. As you're both speaking, it triggered something. One thing I've noticed in developing this space, there's always this tension. You have somebody, I was working on a project, it was for the art world, and they were artists. It was a famous artist in the UK, and they wanted to bring blockchain, they wanted to bring the crypto folks, the whales back into their art world. And what did they do on the flip side is they want to bring art folks into the crypto world. So there's this tension. And I think maybe we all have it. How do we both create something that is for the advanced user, so to speak, that's crypto savvy, that's a whale that understands everything about bridges and wallets, but at the same time, how do we bring something for mass adoption to the average person? And that's always a tension point. So when I think back to player first or player centric or people first, it's that tension of trying to get that right. And I know what our projects at Mythical, we're always thinking about that, thinking about mass adoption, permission chain, ease of password, username, password, things that everyone can grok, but at the same time, how do you build something that somebody super savvy also can leverage that? So that's something also that most projects that I've been involved with, there's that tension and a healthy tension and trying to figure that out. So that's something I think is pretty important to mention when we think about being people first.
I was going to add something. Yeah. Also, kind of, I keep on talking obviously about the players and how they engage with Blanco's block party, but from a creative perspective, I feel incredibly fortunate that I get to work with a lot of external artists. So obviously, a core style aesthetic of our game is the fact that it's based on vinyl toys. So that means I have this really amazing perk of my job that I get to work with lots of vinyl toy artists, James Groman, Kronk, JPK. I definitely recommend going and look them up if you don't know them already. And also invite them into this world. And they don't necessarily exist in a world of video games. They don't necessarily exist in a digital world. They're vinyl toy artists. But it's amazing to me the fact that through the secondary marketplace, that also allows them to continue to see kind of every time their Blanco is sold, they also get something back from that. So, and I can't underline that enough, how kind of proud I am of that within Blancos, and the fact it's not just, I've done my work and it's out there in the ether, and they see a return back from it every time it's sold ever since. So that's a really amazing part of Web3 for me. And yeah, super proud of that.
It's interesting because that was actually a huge part of why I initially was interested in Mythical, was that sort of ability to give back to those artists, because we haven't really seen anything that has effectively done that in the past. So that's huge. So thank you so much for explaining how we at Mythical sort of practice that people first approach. But I would love to hear from you guys. What way would you like to see sort of other Web3 companies in the industry as a sort of a whole take that people first approach?
You know, I almost don't want to say this because it then means that they're, you know, our talent competitors out there are going to figure something out. But, you know, like I said, you know, people are very complex, and when you're looking at people and trying to bring them into your organization, you have to be empathetic to them, and you have to be able to understand that it's not a transaction for them. And a lot of people in the recruiting and the staffing space see it as a very transactional type of an experience, and that ultimately gives recruiting in general a pretty bad name. And so some of the things I'm talking about is how you're adding value, how you're engaging with people, being empathetic, providing a white glove customer experience for your candidates, and also leveraging the people within your company to help be the ones that are actually recruiting, not just the recruiters, I think is really what I would like to see. But if you do that, then you might be, then you're competing with me better. So I actually don't listen to that advice at all, and just keep doing what you're doing. If you're one of those other recruiters, keep doing that. So, yeah.
Well, I think there's two things that come to mind. One is the speculative nature of NFTs right now, I think, is a disservice to the industry. And, the term rug pull is so often used where people promise things that aren't actually going to happen. So I think my call would be to the industry to not do that. And if you're in the space, to really think about long-term value versus a short-term gain. That would be one thing that would come to mind. Another thing in terms of being more people first in Web3 is I don't think there's metaverses. I think there's one metaverse. And I think interoperability, multi-wallet, multi-chain is the future. And some chains out there, at least maybe 2 years ago, 1 year ago, because I worked in one of those companies, you think about Solana, Flow, they're talking about, oh, it's the Ethereum killer. They're going to replace it. It's like, well, maybe not. And then in the meantime, it stayed a little bit of a walled garden. So I know there's been some complaint for some of those ecosystems that they've remained walled gardens. So I'd say, think about interoperability, and there's lots of room for everyone to prosper. And so that would be my kind of second point around being more people first from a product perspective.
Yeah, I really like your point underlining, and I can never say this word, so apologies, interoperability. There we go, boom. I get a shot afterwards. And it's a massive creative challenge, if you think about it, to be able to solve for that. And also, there's so much potential for UGC content and stuff within Web3, and I find that a really exciting area, also scary. Obviously you get mishmash of style and everything like that, but I find it amazing seeing how people, just within the context of Blankos even, and I know I'm going slightly off the original question, apologies, I will circle back. Within Blankos we have a mode called build mode, and it's incredibly basic build mode items, and players get to build their own levels and parties, and it's insane to see what these people are building with incredibly basic items, and kind of how there's an amazing kind of Quicks logo that someone's just recreated. And so that's what I really love about UGC content and the potential within Web3 for that. And people want it. People do really want that control. And also it's important to connect the dots between transferring and realizing certain NFT assets that I own in different ways, and me being able to carry that forward in different arenas as well. Excuse me. Something that I would really like to see and should continue to be worked on, and it will be forever, is just that ease of access again. So what we kind of started off talking about is ensuring that it's welcome to all, and not just a certain portion of people who are maybe tech-minded, tech-savvy, even just understand the wording and kind of the terminology. So I think everyone can do a better job with being a bit more welcoming, and kind of ensuring that it's as the ease to access is as easy but secure as possible, because it's all in our favor that more people try and adopt this as well.
Okay. We keep triggering each other with other things. It's good.
In a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure how many people love the fact that when you see a project, you don't know who's behind it. I don't know if that's a pet peeve of anybody else in the room, but I think there's a world where it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to own it. And I think companies that have made mistakes, you often see it. It's a day, it's a 2 days, it's a 3 days, and they haven't responded, or they respond or try to hide behind it, and then just come and say, we made a mistake. So I think from a level of earning trust, being transparent, even as a manager or leader, when you claim that you've made a mistake, you actually earn trust. So I think that's one thing in terms of where the industry can go, is being much more transparent with who's behind the project. And then if a mistake is made, just to own up, and then that will build trust with that. And I've been involved in projects where there were, just 3 guys in a basement, it felt like, and I said, I just like you guys, and they made it known who they were, and I just invested in them. They stumble a lot, but I'd like that much better than a project that's really hyped up, but you don't know who's behind it. So that's another thing just sort of comes to mind, I think, where there's an area for more maturity in this space.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your standpoint on that. And I'd love to open it up to some questions if there happen to be any in the audience.
Do we have questions in the room? Microphone right here.
So transactions on a blockchain are very high stakes because of their value and their permanence. How do we, or do you have any tips for developers for mitigation strategies to protect maybe more innocent players who are new and don't realize the ramifications of, you know, transferring NFTs and selling something that might have immense value for possibly pennies?
Wow, yeah, it's a tough one too. I don't know how many of you have been scammed for something here. Just thinking about a project Doodles. It was actually a former Dapper Labs, and I didn't know they had copied the site perfectly to a letter, and they registered doodles.io versus doodles.com, and I didn't realize. And back to my never having too much money in one wallet and having lots in the other wallet, I connected, and I just avoided a scam. And I think I'm pretty savvy with it, so there's people with some really bad intentions out there. But I think the first thing for developers is always just trust your Discord and go back to the Discord, and often they'll message it extensively about what's official and what's not. That's the first thing. And then when you're first buying, if you're doing, let's say, the first time I ever bridged tokens or did something like that, just start really small, and commit a Saturday to doing some of the transactions of buying on Coinbase and transfer and dealing with small numbers. And so you get over that little hump. So I would say, trust Discord, trust your moderators, and then when you do something the first time, start in small increments. Yeah.
Hi, my question is to Daniel. So this is my perception, but what I feel is companies operating as DAOs, there is an impact on the speed with which they deliver and the quality. And I'm probably a maximalist on the traditional leadership structure in an organization. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel that DAOs are a little bit slower at completing projects or delivering things?
Yeah, I'd have to think. I don't know what you have in mind for an example, but I think for me, that's, I'm not going to say the next phase, but I feel like we're still landing the first phase of understanding what great, ownership, great projects look like. And it still feels, highly experimental, generally speaking. And every time I listen to a podcast or meet somebody who, they've actually begun to work in a DAO and they're earning a living in a DAO, it's like very interesting, but it's sort of wrought with challenges. Is it slower? I mean, I don't know, even comes to centralized versus decentralized, even not tokenized. When you think about any decision making, if you ever worked in business, the moment you try to get consensus, even if it's not tokenized, it's slow. It's intended to be slow because you're asking for buy-in, you're asking for things to be, decided upon collectively. I think my sense is that for the most part, it's going to evolve, and probably earlier on, it's going to have to be a little bit more centralized in the sense, even in a DAO, and then waves of allowing certain types of discussion. I don't know if I answered it perfectly, but I will just think about in the real world, it's just a challenge anyway, and I don't see it to be substantially different in a tokenized world.
Cool, awesome,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, I have a question. If you could change one thing, one big breakthrough, one big headache goes away tonight and everything's perfect tomorrow, what would that be? You can get personal with it if you like, but maybe in the blockchain space, I'm thinking.
I have an answer for you. I think that what I'm excited about is that there's, like, if you take blockchain developers, for instance, and development in general, like, I think that democratizing the knowledge and the training around being a blockchain developer and enabling people that are engineers in other languages to adapt and be more involved and grow in that space, because I do think it is something that is going to be the future, and I think that we have a challenge with talent right now, so it'd be great to have it be more, the knowledge democratized and embraced by a wider group of people within, like, different tech companies.
Maybe not so much what could go away, but what could be solved, if I might be, in a different sort of way. Before blockchain, I worked in a gaming company, EA, and we dealt with identity. And I just generally think identity is a great problem to be solved potentially just all up, but especially in the blockchain space. So when I say identity, I think again about the collection that you have, the history that you have across chains. I don't know if we've solved it yet. I think there's a wave now where, I don't know, maybe somebody can tell me, is there a wallet that you believe is cross-chain that's super excellent, that you could is your default go-to place, which represents you, your collection, your history across all chains? And shout it out if you have an answer, I'm not sure. I don't either, because I think that's a great, so if I could say, hey, could I fix something? It would be the central entity, which is your identity, which is the place that you keep your things. And again, it's coming back to this, there's a world where it's multi-chain. I think our approach right now is multi-wallet. I go to an experience and I just choose my selected wallet, but there's an essential core to it. And I found when an ecosystem solves identity, then it sort of solves traversing that really well. So I think that would be one thing that I think if I could click my heels and have solved for the world, that would be great.
I think something that you said a couple of days ago that I think would be really awesome for people to approach blockchain and this whole sphere is obviously, I keep on mentioning play to earn, but you mentioned learn to earn as well. And there is learning that has to take place. I learn every single day. I'm working as part of Mythical Games and I'm being schooled on kind of the new technology and everything like that. And then I have to translate that and figure out how it's going to work within Blanco's block party and literally to users that have no idea about this sphere. So I think we're at this point where you do have to actively learn versus it's just part of everyday culture and kind of you don't have to think about it. One day I do think we'll get there where our nans will be able to kind of have their own wallets and things like that, and they'll have loads of blancos and I'll be jealous of their collection. I think we're probably a way off there, but obviously working in this area, we all need to be engaging and working to improve that for everyone, and again make it accessible, but definitely learn to earn. And it's obviously not all about making money, it's maybe you just like collecting stuff, and like we're all guilty of being hoarders, and I know I am, so yeah, I definitely think that was something for sure.
Katherine, Mike, Kate and Daniel from Mythical Games, thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time.